I'm excited now to introduce you to Mr. Mike Oakes, Senior Pre-Sales Engineer at Atempo. Mike, it's great to have you on.
Hey, thanks, David.
Take it away.
So,
Tell us about Atempo.
Sure. Okay, sorry. Little lag there. I apologize. So, first of all, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. As David mentioned, my name is Mike Oakes. I am a Senior Solutions Architect with Atempo, and I've been in the compute and storage industry now about 30 years, a little over 30 years. And real quick, I'd like to introduce you a little bit about Atempo, and then talk more about our AI offering. Who's Atempo? Sorry about that little skip there. So who is Atempo? So Atempo, we bring to bear over 30 years of experience in the field of data protection and management. We have, as a slide note, 2,000 customers, well north of 2,000 customers now, and 200 employees worldwide. And what we enable, and we're going to talk a little bit about our Myriad suite of portfolio, which is now being enhanced with our analytics package. And we enable organizations to preserve and manage their data ecosystems, regardless of that data set size, location, the organization size. And data is usually the lifeblood of any organization, so understanding where it lies and how it's being utilized, consumed, created, it's becoming more and more important in today's 24/7 infrastructure. So our solutions now with the AI package allow us to scan, protect, store, facilitate movement, and provide easy searchable functionality for quick retrieval of data placement, or data that's been placed. So these solution sets, I want to mention this real quickly, that we provide are a software model appliance. So we don't provide any hardware. You can reuse your own. You can take advantage of some existing hardware. If you want to buy some new hardware, you can do that. We have sizing guides and so forth, and we work with our customers and our partners, to size up the solutions. And they're usually not very big. When we talk about sizing guides for servers, it's 1U, 2 CPU box, maybe use a VM depending on the workflow. So, and again, these AI solutions that we're talking about, they fully integrate with our Myriad portfolio of suites of archive, backup, migration, copy, sync, and move. And we'll get a little bit more into that as we go along. So real quickly here, so what did we see, and what do we see in the market space is the challenges of, petascale or managing petascale data silos, right? And the first one, of course, is you need to understand the environment. So where's all the data located? What's the landscape look like, so to speak, that data landscape? And then once you've done that, start to identify the data, right? So, and that's identifying, metadata that's with it, where it's located, localization, all the different nuances that go along with the data workflow, right? And that includes abnormalities. I'm going to speak about abnormalities coming up. And then, of course, taking that information, right, to reduce data silos. There's no need these days to have 4 or 6 copies of the same data in 3 or 5 or 6 different locations. So how to reduce data silos and then improve those data workflows. Right? How do I get things bigger, faster? We'll call it bigger, faster, smarter because it's analytics, but it's more importantly, how do I get things, or how do I best utilize the infrastructure I have, most effectively use the infrastructure I have? And of course, the last one, what's on everybody's mind, right? It saves time, money, and manpower. It's return on investment. If I can use my equipment in a more 7x24, let's say, workflow cycle, the better off my ROI is. So those are the 5 top things we saw in the marketplace that needed to be addressed. So real quickly, how do you do that? Right? Now this becomes important, right? Because you have to start to go through some type of orderly step to get to that end expectation or end usage or act and return on investment. So first you got to do is you got to discover, right? So what is my data? Right? Where's my data? Understanding the data in its entirety of a life cycle. When's it hot? When's it not? Which goes into the analyze phase. And that's, like I said, when's hot, when's not, duplicates, anomalies. And I'm going to use the example of anomaly because when normal things happen in your environment, maybe on a Tuesday, you get a 10 terabyte dump from somewhere. That's normal. You expect that to happen. You don't really need to be alerted on that. You need to be alerted when it doesn't happen because something's gone wrong. Now, excuse me, the AI package, what we have, actually starts to learn about data patterns and learn about workflows. And I want to make a note here. This package stays on site because we're talking about learning about your data, right? Learning about your data flows. Nothing comes back to Atempo. Nothing goes back to some servers in the cloud for an analysis unless that's what you choose to do. We don't take any analysis on your data. It's your data. We want you to keep it, and it's secured in your location. So after all that stuff is analyzed, we've ingested all that information into the servers, we're taking a look at it, we're taking a hard look at some certain things, you need to start to decide, right? That decision factor comes into place. What should I do with my data? What can I do with my data? And some of these things, right, maybe simply is building a better dashboard. So people start to understand, start small, build up. Start to understand the workflow, start to understand what's going on with the data. And the last thing, though, that comes into play is this act decision, right? So let's start to make some business decisions, whether it be manual, automatic, on the information we've gleaned from all this discovery phase. And these four are the steps we've taken that we think effectively work for an analytics tool. So how do you go about discovering petabytes of non-compartmentalized data, right? So where does it all reside? And how do you know what's scattered across different storage environments, different organizations, right? The model previously was I had some storage in one location in a project. Just let them work. They may not even be in the same location, and it's nobody's fault. It's just the nature of the business we're in. But so how do you start discovering now where all that's located? How do we really present it? How do you look at the key metrics, effectively utilize those assets, right, that you have at your disposal? So this is just a representation of one of the dashboards you can create. You can create many dashboards on your own. This one here is taking a look at, data usage, maybe size and age. But you can drill into a lot of different facets, right? You can get very granular, run reports, and tune these metrics and these dashboards to start to get into that, basically that life cycle management, that data workflow you need to start addressing within your organization. But so how do you do that? Right? That first step I talked about was discovering the data, right? That's one of the crucial steps. So to discover that data, right, you want to start looking at, basically, I skipped a slide, I apologize. You want to start looking at that online and offline data. Now it could be disk, tape, cloud, right? You want to interrogate it. Basically, you're inventorying. You're scanning that local, that shared, that remote access to start understanding everything that's in each location. Now, each location is getting a fingerprint, just like an ID. So you need to be able to identify different storage models or different storage pools in different locations and everything underneath it. So that inventory of that fingerprint, that ID, that's taken into account. That's ingested. All that metadata, all the current information within each of those data silos. And then we do perform continuous monitoring in this discovery phase, and that's to learn about data patterns, right? But it's also like the alert on anomalies. And the system will start to learn data patterns and learn about your data patterns, so it starts to give you information back on certain things it's seen. You can set your own key metrics and key criteria, or you can take some of the defaults that we've already built into the tool. So once you've collected that information, right, now you need to start, the analysis starts to happen, sorry. So you start to analyze. And here's some key things you can analyze. I want to look at hot and cold. Right? I want to look at, is my data local to where it's being accessed from? Right? Data usage, age, timestamps. So you're talking about all the different timestamps. So, creation or birth time, modification, last access, all of those things, user, UID, GI, all that information gets collected. So you can start to actually take an analytic look at maybe a user who hasn't been there in 6 years. Why is his information on my primary storage? I don't want it there. Get rid of it. Now, that goes to the bottom bullet. You can start to tag, if you so choose, data for archiving, backup. I want to move it somewhere. I want to tier it. And this is where the hooks into the Myriad suite of portfolio that I talked about earlier comes into play. Because you can start to automatically have things happen on business decisions you've made. We'll alert you and make no decisions to move anything unless you so tell us to, or set up some algorithm to say, you know what, I've hit this criteria, it's on my production storage, and it's 6 months old, I want it archived. And it's 6 months or newer, I want it backed up. And I have 3 copies of it in 3 different locations. I only want to keep 2, and I want to keep it not both on prod. Put it on tier 2 and put it in the cloud, or tier 2 and maybe tape. So you start to be able to take some actions after this analysis, have the analyze and decide phase. So coupled with that, right, so now we're talking about acting. So this is where integrating with the Myriad portfolio I was talking about. So the first one you see, right, move, copy, delete. This basically gets into what I was just talking about a second ago. The ability to look at the data, make some key decisions on that data, from some business decisions. Do I need it on production, yes or no? Do I need multiple copies of it? Do I want 4 copies of it? And if so, where do I want them, right? And start doing things by age or other criteria. If things are hot. A real interesting one that's a use case that we can see a lot of people using is the efficiency of storage. Maybe you have a system in New York that is busy from 8 to 5. But it's basically idle from 6 in the night to 6 in the morning. How can I best utilize that downtime? How do I keep that storage in play? More, maybe not 7 by 24, maybe it's 7 by 20. Right? So I'm getting a better return on my investment because I'm constantly keeping my asset in play. And also that goes to now crypto lockers, prevent crypto lockers. So crypto lockers, you have some certain signatures that we can start to pick those out. But also what you'll see, and what we've noticed is with crypto lockers, they start to modify files in a particular way. So you start to see this repetition happening, which is not normal. So we can start to alert on that, warn you, hey, something's abnormal in this file system. You need to go take a look. This file, and something else is being acted upon by this particular task or some type of nefarious act. I'm going to skip the ROI one for just 1 second and jump to enhanced tiering, and that ties into the movement part of it. So being able to use my tier 1 really for true production. Anything that's old, 2-3 months, hasn't had access, move to tier 2, right? Or move it to tier 3. Maybe you want to push it to the cloud. Maybe you want to use it in conjunction with the cloud. You see it says managing hybrid clouds here. I call it managing hybrid infrastructures now, because it's all kinds of dissimilar architectures, homogeneous architectures you want to put in heterogeneous infrastructure. So how to manage to the cloud? Maybe you want people to be able to tag and move data up, but you don't want them to have them recall things because you're using a public cloud. You want to pay the egress charges. So how do you manage that? How do you actually say people can access the data, but I want to give them approval process to go get it, so I'm not paying somebody to decide they want to egress a petabyte. But also taking a look at how often things are being accessed up on the cloud, because if there is things on the flip side constantly being recalled from, say, a public cloud or maybe tape, that's probably not the place for it. It probably needs to be somewhere else, right? It needs to be someplace that's quicker, isn't cost you as much to come out of the cloud or the network resources. So that's where data placement comes into play and where it's being accessed from and localized. The last one, of course, ROI actions. All of that ties into return on investments, because if I can keep my assets in play for greater hours of the day, but not overwhelm resources, so I don't have a user who thought he was accessing a system locally in London, but's really got a system remote in New York and didn't know, well, we can see that type of information going, that traffic going on, right? So, hey, let's get the data closer to or data resource closer to the user where it's needed, or get the user's task closer to the data, instead of wasting network bandwidth. Excuse me. So some of those key benefits, right? I just mentioned localized devices and data. Right? The closer you get, the faster they run. The tasks and data models run that much quicker. Therefore, you have other time freed up for other resources to run instead of doing things across a network or a wide area network. Identifying and specifying data. Now, that's both for data for anomalies, right, that we talked about, learning about what's normal, what's abnormal on our data silo, but also strictly identifying the data, right? Whether I want to tag it or not is irrelevant. I need to know everything about it. What's that data landscape look like? Where's everything reside? So I can start making the best business decisions for my organization. Organizing data pools goes into the localization, right? So keeping things localized as much as possible. It's not always possible, but the more efficient you can make the workflow, the more efficient you make the assets in the organization run. The two big ones at the bottom kind of go hand in hand. So getting insights to make the best business decisions, of course, that's critical to have in any analytics tool. If I can't give you the proper information, you can't act upon it. And that directly relates into ROI, or saving that money through both automation and storage optimization. Placement, am I using the right type of storage? Am I using spinning disks or SSDs? If I'm using SSDs, am I really getting the full benefit out of them? Right? Was it worth the investment to actually buy those SSDs? Right, so you can start to take a look at some really nice things under the hood. So why analytics from Atempo? Well, first of all, we've been doing, as I mentioned, petascale data management now for 30 years. This was a little south of 30 years, 28, 29 years. But it's fully integrated with that package, that Myria package. And I want to make a note here. This is another tool with the product. This is not an extra cost or an extra fee. With Myria, we're going to give you, basically we call them pillars. This is going to be another pillar to the Myria portfolio. So there's no extra fee, a whole kind of extra services coming with the product. Because it's your data, you need to know where it is, you need to know how to act upon it, you know how to manage it. Right, it goes right into that bullet number 2. So ability to act upon those analytic results. Now, whether you want to tag it manually and say I want to archive and back up or move or something along those lines, or you want to have us do it automatically, both available in the tool. You start to make those decisions which best works for your environment and your workflows. And straight into backup, archive, and move. And the reason why I put this at the end is those pillars I'm just talking about. Those basically are, these are the 4 pillars of Myria. We're adding a 5th if you want to think about the analytics package. So at the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position, Myria for backup, Myria for archiving. We've been doing this, as I said, 28, 30 years now. It's battle tested. It's been around. We've been evolving this product, so it's got a rich feature set underneath. What's been added to it is the products at the 3 o'clock, the 9 o'clock, and not counting the analytics package I was talking about. So migration, think about this as I'm going to consolidate storage and turn something off. I need to it's more like rent the software for X amount of time, maybe 3 months. Maybe then we're going to move all the data and shut off maybe some type of storage. Maybe it's an Iceland, a NetApp, a GPFS, a Lustre, or something. So we're going to something bigger, better, faster on the other side. And then the software, when it's done, you turn it off. It's basically your license for the amount of time you need it. Now, the thing with the analytics tool is it allows you to go, let me go take a look at the storage I need to move. Let me go find out the number of directories, the number of files, how busy, when it's hot, when it's not, when's the best time to move it, right? Is it already IOPS starved? I mean, is it going to take longer than expected because the storage is actually at 92% utilization about 20 hours a day? But so you start to be able to plan and better understand how long a migration is going to take. And then you have the Myria for data moving, right? So think of it as copy, sync, move, synchronization. Want to act upon something, want to move data from 3 different locations to 1, you can do that with the Myria archiving tool, the Myria for data moving tool, or the analytics can be told, you know what, I want to move this stuff from location A to location B. And we'll automatically do it under the hood for you. Now, the backup, data moving, and archiving, think of those as a perpetual or ongoing support-based products. So you get licensing fees, and basically you have support. So those are the 4 products or the 4 pillars of Myria, plus we're adding, like I said, the analytics package, fully integratable. So real quickly, where does this product fit? So if you notice here, we talk about everything from education and research, and it says other. I'll use cloud for other, because it's everything else that's usually the catch-all with cloud. But education and research, we work with universities, research hospitals around the world. The M&E space is kind of where we got started. If anybody remembers Atempo ADA, Tempo Digital Archive, back in the 90s, early 90s, that's where we got started in this. And we manage customers, Hollywood space, hundreds of petabytes in size, data management, both tape and disk. And of course, you have the finance, insurance, and health industry. Those kind of get grouped together a lot because they have a lot of the same regulatory, not all, but some of the regulatory and security things that need to be with encryption, right? With detecting with the anomalies and so forth. So those are really, it's we'll say 2 markets, but they're kind of grouped together, so to speak, in a vertical. And then, of course, you have the government, industry, retail, and then other cloud. The one thing about the cloud, we'll look in the cloud from an analytics perspective. We can also, when we start giving you information, we can start to tell you, you're running this much data in one cloud, this much data in another. We can use cloud as both source and target. So if you find out it's cheaper for you to move from one type of cloud provider to another, we can facilitate that movement. You don't have to depopulate and repopulate. We'll pull the data out via one of our data movers and push it back into the other cloud medium or portions thereof. You can start to split things up, put things where it makes sense for your business model. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to David for questions.
Absolutely, yeah. Great presentation. We do have some questions for you from the audience, Mike. While we do that, I know we've got a couple of polls here. I want to poll everyone's responses to, get your feedback out there in the audience. First question is on the screen, and that is, what is your volume of petascale data? What's your petascale data set size? We want to hear from you, and I'll share the results of this one here in just a moment. Let's see, Mike, first question that came in I wanted to ask you about is around data classification. They're asking, is that one of the steps that folks go through to leverage Myria?
So from an analytics standpoint, yeah. So think about it as in that discover phase, right? You want to classify, or you can start to classify your data after you understand the landscape. And then how do you act upon it, right? So classifying it is an important step to understanding your entire end-to-end workflow and what needs to be done to best optimize for your business model.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Next question, what type of data can be collected through the Discover agent, they're asking?
So just about any type of data. So we don't have any restriction. Now, we're of course, file system based on blocks, so we're talking about collecting data on a file system. We'll collect all the metadata that goes with the file names, all that other information. If there's alternate streams with the data, we'll collect that as well. So you get a full picture of that data in all the different locations, if it's in multiple locations where it's residing.
Okay, interesting, good. Again, I want to remind everyone about the poll question. We appreciate your responses. I'll share the results from that in just a moment. Let's see, let's move on to the next question here. What's the cost for the analytics solution, or what's the licensing model around that?
So it's included. If you have already purchased a Myria suite of products from us, this will just be another, I call it a pillar, so there's no add-on cost.
Nice. That's a big benefit there. Yeah, and then what about using analytics for tiering? Can it help when it comes to data tiering?
Yeah, absolutely. So and it kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier in the presentation. So you may have some data, we'll say on tier 1, that's 6 months old, or to use that's not even no longer with the organization. You can go through and look for all their files, and maybe you want to tier them off to tier 1 or tier 2, or put them on tape and delete them from the primary storage or the production storage. All you can do underneath the hood, whether it's automated or manual with tagging, you get to do both.
Okay, excellent. And then let me bring up our next question here for the audience. The question on your screen is, what additional information would you like about the Atempo solution? And I appreciate the questions coming in. Don't forget about our best question prize as well. We're running that today. So keep those good questions coming. Next question here, they're asking, do you support Wasabi or Azure?
Yes. So Wasabi, Azure, GCP, S3, Amazon, straight Amazon, Swift. So just put all the big ones.
Nice. Nice. And then I know you mentioned the 4, now 5 pillars of the Myria product. Can folks license those individually, or how does that work?
Yeah, so when you basically purchase the Myria product, other than we'll say the migration portion, because that's you're going to migrate data, turn it off, and you're done. All the others are licensable. You get the whole suite of products underneath the hood with the tool or the appliance when you buy it, and then you just turn on and license what you need.
Excellent. And then there's a question here. Is this hardware or software or both? How's it packaged?
All software from us. As I mentioned earlier, it's you can use your own hardware, repurpose your own hardware, and we have configuration guides to help size, and our PS teams help size up solutions for people.
Very nice. And then what about protecting data that's in a SaaS, like Microsoft Office 365? There's a question here, can Atempo help to protect that?
From a protection point of archiving and backing up, yes. The Myria tool is more of an unstructured, think of it as an unstructured data tool, but it can be used for backing those type of things up, archiving and moving data around.
Very nice. And what's the most common use case where you see Atempo really stepping in and like making a huge difference?
So there's actually two places. I see that one is, especially with COVID, right? Everybody's working from home. So the storage models or storage appliances being used are in different locations. Some need to be consolidated. Data needs to be moved between things to get it more localized to the users. So facilitating that workflow and also helping to expand and collapse different data centers and different silos and understanding where all that data resides in relevant use cases to the users or the applications. We really bring that to the forefront where people can see that, take advantage, and make a business decision on how best to implement or utilize their current assets.
Okay, nice. And then when you talk about migration, Miria for migration, what are you typically migrating from and to? Is it from one storage array to another storage array? Is it from on-prem to off-prem, or all of the above?
Could be all of the above. So you could be, I'm going to use let's say we're collapsing a colo facility, or you're collapsing a colo facility. Maybe you have 3 different types of NASs in there, and you're moving it to a new facility, we'll say in New Jersey. It's bigger, better, faster storage, maybe storage and analytics on it. So we can do that collapsing, and we allow you to take many to one to many, many to many. You can get very granular. You can put it in multiple locations. It all depends on what your workflow need is and the business requirement is.
Okay, excellent. And so if folks want to get started with Miria, what's the best way to go about it?
Of course, hit our website, www.atempo.com. You can get a hold of a person like me or one of our other sales engineers. You can also request for demos and POCs. It does come, the 4 pillars right now as they sit come with a 15-day temp license, so you can start playing with archiving, backup, migration, copy, sync, and move.
Very nice. All right. Well, Mike, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. I appreciate your presentation. Thanks for being on the event today.
All right, guys. Everyone have a great day.